Hey guys, what's up? It is week 388. I got a bunch of stuff from Cinema Wasteland to talk about. The Cinema Wasteland video is up. There's a handful of reviews for you. More to come. October is very busy. I have a lot of guest spots and stuff coming up. I have one for Lacey Lou's show. I'm doing one for Duncan's show. A podcast Under the Stairs, of course. So I got a lot of stuff going on. I'm trying to shoot out more of these 1982 videos, and I'm actually decided I think I'm going to do a top 10 for 2024. So I'm squeezing in a bunch of 2024 movies. So first up is going to be from Grindhouse Releasing, and this is Hollywood 90028. Yeah, so Grindhouse puts out a lot of great stuff. They, of course, put out The Beyond and Cannibal Holocaust and Cannibal Ferox and I Drink Your Blood. More recently, what was their last release? Impulse by William Greffet. So this is a movie, 1974, that I really had never heard of. There's a couple alternative names. Maybe I heard about this movie in passing, but it was never one that was on my radar. So when they picked this up and were planning on doing a nice release of it, I was pretty ecstatic because, you know what? Grindhouse kind of focuses on really interesting or great films, or both, a little bit of both. So this one here, this is kind of your psychological horror film where we follow kind of a character who is pretty much a serial killer. He has mommy issues. He is chauvinistic, misogynistic, hates women completely. He's more misogynistic, but it's not done in the fact that he constantly treats women like crap. He doesn't treat them great, but 70s comparative films, probably about the same. But something triggers in him where he can't seem to help himself and he must strangle women. In the very beginning, we have our character here, who's of course a photographer. Like all good perverts from the 70s or 80s, they have to have a side gig of photography or their main job, right? Don't Answer the Phone, Jeffrey Dahmer, all of them kind of did it, real and fake mixing there. But so this one here, he's a photographer. LA is a huge part of this movie. A lot of the landscapes and locations are highly kind of shown and focused on and even talked about. And hey, what they say about tearing down the old buildings pretty much has come true. So in the very beginning of this film, our character here is getting ready to sleep with a woman, and she mentions something that triggers him about mother or sister or something along those lines, and he strangles her. Then we go for a long time. We kind of see him working for this kind of sleazy, kind of sweaty guy, very stereotypical kind of character, and he's taking pictures of all these models and whatnot, and he kind of ends up meeting this young woman who lives in this apartment, and she kind of is in a relationship, but he's not around, and he starts to fancy her, and they start kind of a good relationship, seemingly. It's one of these movies, right, where you have these two characters that meet, and one character we already know is dangerous, already know is a psycho, but for some reason you hope it's not quite as pushing for as like a Psycho, where we really want Tony Perkins to become a decent person and not kill Janet Leigh or anyone else in the movie. But we kind of get that here, and he's really struggling and all that kind of thing. And there's points when he relapses and of course kills somebody. I'm treating it like a disease, but there's certain points in this movie where there's a lot of dialogue and a lot of characters where it completely stops focusing on the serial killer kind of subplot, right? We get backstories of his life throughout like the film, when either if he's interacting with other people or other things like that. And the end is super dark. The ending of this movie is highly memorable. It's fantastic. Involves the Hollywood kind of sign, which kind of shocked me, and it's very abrupt and actually made me jump, kind of took me back a little bit, where I was like, oh boy. It looks great, especially seeing all the locations that are no longer there. There's so many of these movies that are quintessential New York movies. I think this would be kind of maybe in that line with I wouldn't say quintessential, but a very, very LA movie, and it could very well become one of those like quintessential LA movies, which has that kind of, I wouldn't say like sleaze and grime. It's a completely different vibe than the New York movies. But the lead guy is pretty good in here. He's pretty convincing, and the female in here, I can't think of her name. She's decent. She's not great. She's not horrible either. But some of the performances, I would say a lot of them were 80 yard later, or at least at the scene in the outside is most definitely 80 yard. And it's one of the only movies that, I think this dialogue was actually in the script, but they lost it or somehow. But I was thinking this is all ADR and added in to make it more interesting, and expositions and stuff like that. And I was thinking this is the only movie that adds ADR that makes it better in a weird way. You know what I mean? Tons of ADR. There's a scene where he picks up this girl on the beach, and she's just kind of she's a bizarre character, very weird and strange, and just like weird, and the dialogue is absolutely hilarious, and he's just like being horrible to her, and she's not really catching on a lot of it. But yeah, Overall, I think Hollywood 90028 is, or 90028 or 90028, however you want to say it, is actually really good. It's kind of a movie that was a hidden gem to me that I had only heard about in passing, and finally getting to see it was really cool. I think Grindhouse did an excellent job with this. It's not a gratuitously gory film, but there is sex and nudity, of course, with the photography, and there's a couple sex scenes, and there is some XXX inserts that are in like standard def that are on the special features. So as far as the special features, we have, of course, original 35 camera neg, 4K restoration, and we have provocative in-depth interviews with star Christopher Augustine, Jeanette Digler, Gail Davis, editor Leanne Ortiz-Gill, and Tom DeSimone. And Tom DeSimone was the director, of course, of stuff like Hell Night and did some other movies, but he did porno films, and he knew this director very well. As basically talks about her, her life early on and meeting her, and even her death, untimely death, of course. And that's just always one of those things that's really insightful because it's somebody that was very close with her in the time when she was making these movies. So that was really good and cool, and also another fellow filmmaker. Then we have audio commentaries by Mark E. Hook and Heidi Honeycutt and Sean Langrick. Shocking alternate scenes from original X-rated version. Experimental 16mm short films by Christina Hornisher. Outtakes, still galleries, theatrical trailers, radio spots, liner notes by cinema historians Mark E. Hewick, David Skolton, Richard Kraft, and Jim Van Beber. There we go. Bonus CD, original soundtrack album by Basil Polidorus, which is insane because he went on to do stuff like RoboCop and whatnot. New Year mastered and stunning 24-bit 92H upturned sound from the original master tapes. Yeah, and there's other surprises as well. Has a soundtrack here by Basil. Yeah, it's just an excellent, cool movie that I never really heard much about. 2 disc, of course. One has the features and one has the Blu-ray. Anyways, Grindhouse releasing, doing the Lord's work. I think I've enjoyed every single movie they put out. The Swimmer was great. Corruption was great. Of course, Cannibal Holocaust and Beyond. You can't go wrong with those. Looking forward to Blu-rays. I'm at 4Ks of The Beyond and Cannibal Holocaust, hopefully. Yeah, but Hollywood, good stuff. Okay, the next one here is from Visual Vengeance, and this is Despiser by Philip Cook, made in 2003. And this was a movie that I had heard the title in passing, and I'd heard maybe some positive things about it, but that time for American cinema, and a lot of times low-budget cinema, was really iffy. Sometimes the low-budget cinema was fantastic, very ambitious, and sometimes it was really crummy, direct-to-video crap that just was trying to get in a video store. Now, Despiser, I was unsure, because Visual Vengeance will put out a lot of stuff that just speaks to me, hidden gems for me, low-budget movies. And sometimes they do stuff that's like is for a different audience, like a schlocky kind of silly stuff, and that kind of deal, like Suburban Sasquatch, which is not necessarily my jam. Despiser, I put this in, and within 10 minutes, I was like, oh wow, this is super sincere, super ambitious, and in a low-budget movie, sincerity goes such a long way. Now, the CGI digital effects are absolutely awful. They're very much of the time. They're even low-budget for the time, and they're bad. But they work in the movie, except when they're in the real world. They have kind of a purgatory, if you will, and a lot of the CGI, most of the CGI is there. So you're like, that makes perfect sense. What we have here is a graphic designer who wants to use his creativity. He's a beautiful he paints beautiful paintings. He's just kind of an anti-authoritarian kind of guy, and he gets fired from his job. He drinks too much. His girlfriend kind of sees this, and she's, no, I'm moving in with my parents. He kind of goes home drinking and driving, I believe. He gets in a crash, and what happens is he wakes up in this crazy kind of world. There's this group of people that are stuck in purgatory that have not been taken over by the Despiser, who is an alien, I believe, as well as his henchmen called the Shadow Men, and other people that are here that have been overtaken by the Despiser. All these people in purgatory, and the Despiser appears to be some sort of alien that crashed into this, purgatory on accident and can't get out. As well as the Shadow Men want to get out, who is another villain with Despiser, who no longer has his physical form, so now he jumps from body to body, which is really cool. So we have this group of survivors, and of course our hero here is going to team up with them, and he keeps popping up and waking up, being revived, kind of brought back to life into the real world, so he's going between the real world and this, and of course everybody thinks he's crazy, but as it progresses, we learn to like all the characters in this kind of purgatory, all these badass guys and girls that are fighting the good fight, right, and of course him. And there's a love angle with his wife and all these kind of things like this. And you know what? I would say that the acting ranges. Some of it's really good, some of it's very poor, and not very poor, but poorer, I would say. But the digital effects aren't great, but for some reason the story drives it forward so much that I was like, I don't care. I really don't. And I'll say that a lot. Bad CGI only becomes a real big problem if you're already having problems with a movie. And that's when it really stands out. I prefer practical, always will prefer practical, like I always prefer film as well. But overall, I thought Despiser had a great story, a great enough story, and interesting enough characters that it pushed past its budgetary constraints. And that's about the most complimentary you can be on a B movie, or a low budget movie, or no budget cinema. And this pretty much did it. I love the story, I love the characters, and especially the character, I think his name is Carl. And they're all from different times, too, in that kind of vein. Kind of like Near Dark, where all the vampires are from different periods, of course, and this is kind of that way too, right? They all ended up in purgatory at different times. You have a cowboy, you have kind of almost a guy from, like, he's like a religious kind of guy. I can't necessarily think where he would be from, but very, very long time, 1300, they say anything. He's an African American guy. He's by far, he steals the show along with the lead. I think they're both really good. You feel for the characters. There's also Fumi, who is from World War One, which is great. There's a couple jokes in here, once mentioned of the Hiroshima. And there's a couple other cute little jokes in here, too, where somebody quotes, the Bible, and he quotes AC/DC, we're on the highway to hell. And somebody's like, what's that? And he's like, well, it's that kind of deal here. But it doesn't overdo it. It doesn't wink at the camera constantly. Just a subtle hint there, here and there. But it's mostly the characters interacting, which I really liked. And this director, Philip Cook, did some stuff in the 90s, which seems a lot like this movie, except practical. Invaders, which I had a DVD of and I never watched. I'm sitting here like, why was I sitting on this movie for so long? They have the trailer on there. I'm just like, this looks really good. His movies are very ambitious, and I was very happy with this. I was very surprised by it, to be honest. Despiser, very cool stuff. Bunch of special features, SD master from original tape elements, commentary with director Philip Clark, and stars Mark Redfield and Gage Sheridan, commentary with Sam Panenko and BNS about movies, and Bill Van Ryn of Drive-In Asylum. The making of Despiser, deleted scenes, blooper reel, outtakes, the storyboard animation, original DVD menu animated into intro, behind the scenes gallery, image and art gallery, Despiser original trailers, Visual Vengeance trailer, Outer World trail, Invader trailer, stick to your own VHS sticker set, reversible sleeve, tons of stuff, fold a mini poster, two-sided insert with original alternate art, optional French audio soundtrack, and it is region free, and you also have subtitles on here. Would recommend this one. Visual Vengeance puts out lots of great stuff. Some I love, some I like. Most of it I find interesting. A couple ones that aren't for me, but I still think it's a cool, interesting label. Wild Eye is kind of their parent company, but Despiser, I really like this. Okay, next up we have another one from Visual Vengeance, and this is Kung Fu Rascals, and this is from director Steve Wang, 1992. Steve Wang, of course, directed Guyver 1 and 2, Dark Hero. I love Guyver 1 and Guyver 2, so Kung Fu Rascals is one that I had heard about for years. And this is kind of a strange film because I believe that Steve Wang is from Taiwan, and his films, this film especially, is very much a mixture of Japanese influence, like, the classic kind of, I would say more so like, I wouldn't say samurai, but it has the samurai elements and daimajin movies, and the kung fu films from Hong Kong. So it's bizarre to see these two mix. We see them in a lot of Hong Kong movies. We'll incorporate, kung fu and stuff like that. But it's never, samurais and stuff coming into there. But it's never like a pass look and equally mixed kind of deal here. So this is kind of a mixture of those kind of influences. Of course, Steve Wang also did special effects and stuff and worked on Monster Squad. So this is a super low budget, ambitious movie as well. It's an SD version. It was shot on Super 8 from my understanding. So the elements aren't really there. This is a long film. It's like an hour and 45 minutes, as was Despiser. So we have three kind of kung fu rascals, right? One played by Troy from what is his name? He's in, you'll recognize him. He pops up in Darkman and Shrunken Heads. That's where I recognize him. Very small role in Darkman, but I remembered him very much in, Shrunken Heads as one of the bullies. But Troy from Frump or something like that. Sorry, it's not on the case. And also the actor in Guyver, who the bully kind of leader of a gang who ends up fighting our main character, Armstrong, I think is that Jack Armstrong, is that the character actor's name? But he's in this as well as one of the Kung Fu Rascals. He plays kind of a nimwit. So in those kind of vein of Japanese and Hong Kong films, what we have here is a group of three kind of dumb, unlikely heroes that have this like kind of weird treasure map kind of deal, and it's supposed to lead them to treasures. And of course the bad guys want it. One of which was very much like a Lord Zed kind of style style character, and he's just like, go get the treasure map. And then he has kind of like a henchman who is this weird kind of like frog kind of guy. Not frog, but he's like a toad kind of pig guy. He's really fun. He's kind of like, he's the best special effects and the best actor, I think, in the movie, best character. But also he has a bunch of henchmen. One is actually played by, the guy from Primus, if I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but he actually knows what he's, Les Claypool. He actually knows martial arts, so he's in this, and he knew Steve Wang years ago and did the score for this movie as well. So he's leading a group of kind of goons, one named Buffoon and one named Darling, who's very effeminate, which is a classic kind of character in the Kung Fu movies. There would always be kind of a feminine character that is a male that fought. And that also is a very prevalent in the Japanese movies at times. But even in stuff like Story of Ricky, which is a Hong Kong film, you have, sometimes they switch it up and you'll have like an actor, a female actor play a male character and whatnot. So this one, I have a character called Darling and Buffoon, and they're funny, just kind of comic morons. But there's tons of kung fu in this movie, a lot of fighting. It's a big adventure film. At the very end, you have a Diomedean kind of story where you have these two big giant stone golems kind of fight. So there's a lot of stuff going on. It's, like I said, it is very charming, but at the same time, you do feel the runtime. I wish the elements were better. Overall, I like this movie. I don't love it. It leads on a sequel possibility, but you want more. Well, you want to kind of end kind of deal. You want to see more stuff. The special effects on the monsters and the kind of villain kind of stuff is excellent. That stuff is very well done, especially on a budget. But overall, Kung Fu Rascals is a fun movie. A bit too long, very ambitious, kind of there for people that like that kind of Asian influence, possibly looking at kind of do-it-yourself movies. I think you would like it then. As far as the special features are concerned, we have director-supervised SD Master from Tape, making of Kung Fu Rascals, brand new feature-length documentary, very long too, very in-depth, has almost all the players in there, very cool. And Les Claypool seems like a really smart guy, as does the director Steve Wang seem like a super nice guy. The reunion of the three Rascals, commentary with director Steve Wang, actor Johnny Seiko, actor Troy Frumman, a composer and actor Les Claypool III, and actor Ted Smith. Commentary with Kung Fu Rascals superfans Justin DeClaw and Dylan Chang. Stephen Wang and Les Claypool III meet again. Distributing Kung Fu Rascals on VHS, Chris Gore interview, behind-the-scenes video diaries, original Kung Fu Rascals Super 8 short film, Steve Wang short film Code 9, complete film threat video, 6 behind-the-scenes articles, still galleries, behind-the-scenes image gallery, visual vintage trailer, stick to your own VHS set, of course, the stickers, reversible sleeve featuring original art, collectible folded mini poster, two-sided insert with alternate art, and English subtitles, also region-free, so Kung Fu Rascals, fun stuff, check it out. Okay, the next one here is by a pair of directors, and I think this is their first feature-length film. There's two French directors, and this is Amer. And I never saw this. I never saw any of their films, which is bad. I bought all of them, never watched any of them. That's my fault. But I have to watch this for something. I'm glad it pushed me to finally check it out. Now, this pair of directors kind of does movies that are very heavily influenced by Italy. Now, it's more so in the vein of style over substance. And my friend Dave Z would say that it's such a style over substance thing that the substance is the style. And I can see that. So we follow this character from 3 different points in her life. We see her as a child, and it's a lot of fantasy mixing with reality and kind of like these traumatic events with her grandfather dying, and she's wandering around the house, and the maid possibly is like a witch, and she's putting these weird spells, and it's really bizarre and really strange, and there's a constant kind of infatuation with water and the sounds of things, and everything is overly amplified. If this story were told direct and right in your face, just very blandly, the movie would be 45 minutes, but since they tell it in such a crazy, weird way with close-ups and overemphasis on sound effects and lighting and all this kind of cool stuff, it's like an hour and a half. But she has this weird kind of thing with her grandfather and whatnot, and almost this deadly thing under the bed with these kind of spells. And as she progresses as a teenager, you see this kind of weird interaction with these people and all this stuff, and her mother kind of pushing her. She sees, as a child, she sees her mother having sex, and it's like a weird sexual awakening thing. And the rest of the movie is so fucking horny. Like, everything in this movie is super horny. Especially the third act, of course, where she's a grown-up. Thank God it's that act, not the other two. But the whole movie feels incredibly horny. As a teenage teenager, she has this like kind of run-in where like she's having these men like drool over her with their eyes and just saying you're getting older, and she seems almost out of it, maybe scarred from an earlier thing that happened to her. And by the end of the film, she goes back to this place and has one of the most bizarre car rides of all time. It's this thing where you take a simple car ride and you just like hyper, make this crazy stylized deal, and it just becomes something else completely. But this fantasy mixing with reality and all this kind of stuff is very interesting and very weird, and all I'll say is that even in death, life can be very horny, or death can be very horny as well. But Amer, super visually pleasing, really cool movie. Only watched it the one time. Would definitely want to rewatch. I think I would appreciate it more. I need to watch Let the Corpses Tan and The Strange Color of Your Body's Tears. I'll be watching that latter one pretty soon. But yeah, this is from Olive Films. It has some special features on there, a bunch of the director's shorts, and of course it has subtitles. It's a French-Belgian movie. But I would recommend Amer. It's definitely not for everybody, but if you can get past that kind of weirdness about it and you love Italian cinema, you might be interested in this. The soundtrack is pretty much a bunch of movies that have already been, lifting from movies like Tentacles and whatnot, which is used in a bunch of movies. And I think Piercing did the same kind of deal from, 5-6 years ago. Piercing did it. And then, of course, this movie has a very similar kind of vibe to the Onetti brother movies like Provaso, Profondo, man, what is that one called? The Sleep one, Red Sleep or something. They did like 3 films, and they all kind of fit in that vein. Francesca is one of them as well. So it's similar to that, just a little bit more polished, I would say. Amer, good stuff. Okay, let's do a couple 2024 movies. I'm going to be relatively quick with these. So the first one up is Abigail, and this is by the directing pair who did Ready or Not in the last 2 Scream films. And now, I do like Ready or Not. I mean, I don't love it. I think it's a good film. Let's put it that way. I think Samara Weaving's good. I think it's a well-made film. It's just the comedy didn't really land with me, so I was a little iffy on it. So Abigail, this one landed a lot better with me. More my jam, I guess. It has Kevin Durant in it, and of course, Dan Stevens. Those are the 2 big names for me. And in the very beginning, we have this kind of heist, a group of like 5 or 6 kind of goons they seem to be pretty much professional, know what they're doing, and they end up kidnapping this young girl from this very expensive house. They meet up with Giancarlo Esposito, and he's in this house, and he says, well, just watch the girl, and you're going to be all paid a bunch of like $5 million or something, $4 million. They're all kind of excited, and he names them all by the Rat Pack. He's got your Dean, your Frank, and somebody speaks up, and they're the Don Rickles of the group, which is pretty funny. But before long, they realize that Abigail, the girl they kidnapped, and I'm pretty sure this movie's been spoiled to death by everybody at this point. I'm probably going to spoil it as well. She's not as she appears. So before I say this, it's a good film. I enjoyed it. Well acted for the most part. I think that the lead, not that she's a bad performance, just her character's not great. She's kind of bland. And I think the main kind of character that comes in at the very end is not great as well. The kind of last character that's introduced, without spoiling it. Plus, Abigail's great. Dan Stevens is great. Kevin Durant is great. Great actors, though. They're in a bunch of stuff. I mean, Abigail I've not really seen before, but she does fantastic, especially as a child actor. The movie's gory. It has payoffs. It's funny. It keeps you intrigued. So it's a good film. Spoiler alert, Abigail is a fucking vampire, and I think all the trailers spoil that, unfortunately. But then again, if people didn't know it was a horror film, would they go see it? But so anyways, Abigail has planned this whole thing out, right? She plans here to do all this stuff to pick them off, which is perfect because she's bored. She's an ancient old vampire, and she basically starts picking these guys off. There's a couple comedic ones, like this one guy's the driver. He's a goon. He's an idiot. There's a kind of a cool scene where our main character knows everybody by looking at them. He kind of explains everybody who they are and whatnot. Dan Stevens plays a prick. He plays the role perfect. He never really changes, and he plays it till the end. Very good performance from Dan Stevens. I remember him from The Guest and a couple other films, but he always does a good job. He's a solid actor. Kevin Durant, he's in Tragedy Girls and a bunch of other films. Big guy, fucking hilarious in this. He's the kind of the big, dumb, kind of muscle guy. He's fantastic. And there's a scene where they have the vampire kind of control the other vampires in a very unique way. Kind of like if you're bit, but you're not bit correctly, you're kind of become a puppet, and the vampire can move you in a certain way. I thought that was a very nice touch. I don't know if I've ever actually seen that. I've seen people being able to see through the vampire that bit them, and Dracula the book, and also just turning into their minion, but not exactly in that kind of aspect where the vampire can physically move you how it does. Thought that was really cool. Bloody, cool movie, entertaining, no complaints, really solid, good vampire film, and Abigail, check it out. Okay, the next one here is Oddity. And Oddity is directed by the, I think, Irish or Scottish filmmaker, I believe it's Irish, who did Caveat a couple years back. And Caveat, I thought, was really well made. I just thought the premise bothered me enough that somebody's going to go and follow all these rules because they're so desperate. I couldn't get over on me. But I thought it was a well-made movie. I still like it, don't love it. Oddity, same deal. Very good movie. Very well directed, very well acted. Cinematography's great, so no real complaints here. In the opening, it's very much a When a Stranger Calls Back kind of deal, without spoiling too much, but if you've seen that movie, you'll get it. Very well done, very scary scene. And what happens is we kind of fast forward after that opening, and we realize that the person in the two people in there have been both killed or died. And we kind of do this whole thing where we're following a doctor who's moved on. He's now dating. His wife has died, so spoilers on this. And she had a twin sister who is like a clairvoyant in a weird kind of way. She could hold items and understand them and say what's happened to them. Has premonitions, if you will. And so when she learns that her sister's, her brother-in-law has basically moved on in a short period of time, she's very suspicious. She wants to go to this giant house is where they stayed at, and this house is very weird as well. And she just thinks something's up. We do see him at work, and the more it progresses, we kind of figure out exactly what's going on. It's not much of a mystery. It's very, very much typical in that aspect. There is a cool idea that they do show some, haunted objects in very much a Conjuring kind of way, right? Or not Conjuring, yeah, Conjuring, where these items could possibly be all haunted and whatnot, kind of open up your eyes to another world. The only problem with Oddity that I'll get to right now, I'm getting to it, is there's absolutely nothing wrong with the acting, nothing wrong with the cinematography or even the scares or well-crafted scares. Besides a couple aspects, it's very bland. Not bland. I don't want to say that. Predictable, I don't want to say that either. I don't think it's doing anything new. Now, that doesn't mean it's bad. I just feel like I've seen this movie a handful of times. It does do some things better than anyone else, so that's a plus. There's a kind of a wooden doll that plays into the sister's kind of family lineage and whatnot, and that thing's creepy as shit. But it's so obvious from the first frame who the bad guy is and whatnot. Maybe not every little detail, but it's pretty obvious right away. There's a couple creepy moments looking in the camera and seeing a character in the background. Now, they do play a little bit with who possibly could be the villain and whatnot. Overall, this is a good movie. Has a cool ending with kind of a haunted object. I like Oddity. I think it's good. I don't think it'll make my top 10. I think it's about on the level of Abigail, both like 7s out of 10s, which I mean is a great rating for, anything over a 7 I absolutely love. A 7 I really like, I would watch again, and most likely it would probably go up with more repeated viewings. But Oddity's a good film. I think it's better in Caveat, which I think has a better premise. I think it has better cinematography, better location. Doesn't have the creepy doll, but it has a creepy kind of woodman thing, which is pretty cool. But yeah, Oddity, check it out. It's streaming and whatnot. It's pretty good. Okay, the last 2024 movie is Azrael. So yeah, this is by E.L. Katz, who directed Cheap Thrills in like 2013 or something like that. Fantastic movie. Love Cheap Thrills. So this is more of a horror film. And this movie takes place after the Rapture. So it's a post-apocalyptic wild movie where the characters, they interpreted the Bible or something along those lines and follow these weird cult where nobody really speaks, right? And there's these weird creatures that have appeared to possibly be partially raptured where they're taken into the sky but things didn't work out right. I don't know. But they're all charred and burned and nasty as shit. So they're kind of wandering around this wasteland. Samara Weaving is in here. Excellent actress. I just talked about Ready or Not earlier. Samara Weaving's excellent in this. She's styling. It's a pretty good performance. You don't realize how good it is until you think about it, to emote without voice or anything like that. So she basically has a partner and they seem to love each other and respect each other. And he lights a fire, which is a big no-no. A group of this cult kind of is chasing them and they end up capturing them. And they tie her up to be some sort of ritual. She luckily escapes the ritual. And we see what these creatures are and what this group of people worship and everything like that. Kind of like the ritual, right? Where we had that group of like pagan, it's not pagan, but it's more like in a weird demented sort of Christian religion, but maybe they have a pregnant lady there that they worship. I don't want to spoil anything else, so if you don't want spoilers, move past this, skip this review. But overall, before I get into it, I really liked this one. I thought the acting was great. I thought the gore was great. Surprisingly nasty as shit in the gore. I was just kind of taken back. I thought the characters were great. Thought it was really cool to see a tough, kind of badass character kind of do her thing in here. In a realistic way. It's not completely insane either, a lot of action kind of styles. It's a little grounded, and there's some clever ways that things happen. Overall, I thought this was good. I thought the ending was cool. I didn't think this movie wore out its welcome. Overall, I liked it a lot. Okay, spoilers. So, when you see somebody pregnant after the rapture, you can assume what that person is going to be pregnant with, right? Am I wrong? But there ends up being a lot of kind of goon characters in this cult, and they don't speak, but somehow they establish their characters fairly well. And when they die, when they get picked off, it works well. The ending is brutal. I mean, it's not brutal. It doesn't hold back its punches. I actually enjoyed it. So if you want to check this out, I would recommend Azrael. You know, I'm not. Sometimes religious horror doesn't do it for me. Like something like Exorcism, Emily Rose, I think comes across, you know, very kind of propagandish. If I'll say propagandish, very much like propaganda. I think I'll use that term more, that verbiage or whatever the fuck you want to say. But I think this one is just really good. I love post-apocalyptic movies. I love monster, creature things. It's kind of got a zombie element, but they're not exactly zombies. They're, you know, I heard an interview with the director, and they mentioned that he didn't want to do zombies. He wanted to do something less familiar, less goofy, something a little bit scarier, and they work really well. Overall, I like this one. Samara Weaving's good. Everything's pretty solid about this one. Now, a lot of people could be like, hey, well, you've seen a lot of post-apocalyptic movies and religious horror, and you probably have, and you just made fun. You said Oddity didn't have anything original in it, maybe, but this one's more my jam, so Azrael, check it out. Good stuff. All right, let's get to those 1982 movies.
I know I'm human. If you were all these things, then you just attack me right now. So some of you are still human. This thing doesn't want to show itself. It wants to hide inside an imitation. It'll fight if it has to. But it's vulnerable out in the open. If it takes us over, then it has no more enemies. Nobody left to kill it. And then it's won.
You son of a bitch, you moved the cemetery, but you left the bodies, didn't you? You son of a bitch, you left the bodies and you only moved the headstones! You only moved the headstones! Why? Why?
For a girl like you to come into my life, I've been waiting for a girl like you who loves and will survive. I've been waiting for someone new to make me feel alive. Yeah, waiting for a girl like you to come into my life.
You bitch! You called me a bitch!
What's in the basket?
How do we know she is alive?
Please stop it. There's no more time. You've got to... Please stop it. Stop it now. Turn it off. Turn it off. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it.
First one up is a classic from Sam Fuller. Less of a horror movie, definitely a drama first, drama thriller, and then I'd say horror. And this is White Dog. Only a DVD in the States here, unfortunately, but it's Criterion, so you know it's quality. Sam Fuller, I mostly know from growing up from watching The Big Red One, of course, but, you know, he's also in Return to Salem's Lot as an actor, and he did tons of movies like Shot Corridor. He's a very respected director, Sam Fuller. So here we go, White Dog. This is a classic movie. I've seen this one before. Christy McNichol is driving home. She's an actress, and she ends up kind of hitting this white German Shepherd, beautiful dog, takes her to a pound. And they can't, they're like, well, you paid for the fees to go ahead and take the dog. If you take it to a shelter, there's a good chance it'll be euthanized. It's an older dog. So she takes this dog home and she starts to get attached to it. Her boyfriend really is kind of curious, like, maybe you don't keep it. He's the boyfriend from, he's the guy from Prince of Darkness, 87, the Carpenter movie. He's not in it very much. But, so she's kind of, keeping the dog a little bit longer, and a burglar breaks in and saves her life. The dog is really violent, and then we kind of realize what this dog is. It kind of goes out at night and it attacks an African-American street cleaner and the sweeper kind of machine, and it's a white dog. And what White Dog is basically talking about is like the racism is inherently taught in something, and it's very hard to get it out. It's a very dark kind of movie, and when somebody puts some like violent tendency in an animal, it's just incredibly depressing. So she ends up going to an animal trainer, and this guy named Crothers, and he says, well, I can't do nothing for the white dog. But Paul Winfield from stuff like Terminator and Cliffhanger comes in, excellent actor. And he has this kind of infatuation, what he wants to do is cure dogs, being a white dog. He wants to figure out how to do it, how to train it, how to save this dog's life, and possibly put forth, something that is better in humanity to teach the people that won't make white dogs anymore if he can cure the disease. So he starts to work on this dog. At one point it does escape and kill somebody. So there's a couple of these moments that do feel like horror films, especially in the church. It's just dark moments. And the way they film the dog, it feels like a horror film at times, and the weird kind of sometimes like creepy music. But it's really a dramatic movie with really well acted by Paul Winfield and Carruthers, and the lead's good too, and just depressing, and it just kind of gets its message across, right? Like racism is horrible, obviously, and disgusting, and it's really hard to rewire somebody or something when it's already been wired that way. And it's, maybe our job as a society to try to erase it, but at the same time, is it even worth it? It just gets into this whole questionable kind of thing about, evil people teaching innocent animals this horrible act. But White Dog's a great film. Highly recommend. Wish it would get a Blu-ray or 4K release. It deserves it. It's very short movie for a kind of a prestige movie, I would say, and it seems like low budget. It's not like this giant budgeted movie, but there's a lot of good dialogue, a lot of good characters for what it is. I mean, for the minimal amount of people in it, I think it's successful. Bob Miner is in here too. Small role. Bob Miner is a stuntman in just about every 70s movie you've ever heard of. Anything with a blaxploitation movie, Bob Miner's probably in it as a stuntman or a bit player. He's a bit player in this one. I'm sure he probably helped with stunts as well. But yeah, good film. Really like this one. White Dog, classic. Okay, the next one from 1982 is BrainWaves, more of a sci-fi thriller, then horror movie, relatively short film. I think stuck on VHS, maybe a DVD from Image, but not easily findable. This is Ulai Lamel, who did great films like Tenderness of the Wolves and bizarre films like Devonsville Terror and The Boogeyman. Now, this is after The Boogeyman, before Devonsville Terror, and after Tenderness of the Wolves, of course. He would go on to direct a bunch of direct-to-video kind of serial killer-esque movies like Zodiac stuff, like Zodiac Nation, a bunch of crap like that, which, I never really went and watched, because at that point his movies were just kind of unwatchable, just these budget direct-to-video Lionsgate DVDs. But early in his career, like Tenderness of the Wolves I love, Boogeyman is interesting enough, Devonsville Terror I think is fine. I like that one. So this one, Brainwaves, I was kind of excited to check it out. I was like, he's doing this sci-fi deal. This has Keir Dullea in it, has a couple other names in here as well, Tony Curtis, and I know I'm missing somebody. The opening scene, it's rated PG in a lot of places. I'm seeing a PG rating, like no fucking way, because in the beginning somebody throws a radio into a bubble bath, and this woman is electrocuted. Her breasts are hanging out, and they even show some pubic hair down there. I was like, oh, well, this must be, maybe I'm watching an uncut version or a different version or something along those lines. But that death scene's pretty brutal, pretty memorable. And as we progress, we're like, okay, this is going to be crazy. We have this kind of family of people, Keir Delua, and he has a daughter. I think it's his daughter. Maybe it's his girlfriend. I don't know. The age difference is very strange. It's VHS hell. She gets in a car accident and gets a damaged brain. So they try this kind of crazy thing. Tony Curtis and his group of doctors want to try this weird kind of thing where they put somebody else's brainwaves in hers to kind of cure her. And at first it seems to work, but she's starting to have visions and everything of the person who was murdered because they used murdered person's brainwaves. And it's the girl from the beginning. So before long, she starts to kind of try to solve her own murder, but it's going to lead to a killer. And that's pretty much the plot. It's a 30-minute movie, possibly should be, but it's drawn out into like an 85-minute movie. It's too long for what it is. It's not horrible. It's kind of a snooze fest. It's not great. I mean, it has a decent cast. They do their best. The opening scene is pretty memorable. By the time you get to who the killer is, you could care less. BrainWaves is very mediocre. Not the worst movie ever. Not poorly made. Just not that interesting. It's okay. Sci-fi kind of shocker thriller. Not nearly as good as Looker from the year previous, which is kind of cool-ass movie I love. But this one is no Looker, I'll tell you that, BrainWaves. And it's no Devin Filter. It's not even a Boogeyman. At least Boogeyman was entertainingly stupid. And it's definitely not a Tenderness of the Wolves. But Ulai Lamel, R.I.P. Not great movie. Okay, next up is the Patreon pick. And I guess we'll double this as the Weekly Western. But I'm probably not going to throw the Weekly Western intro in here. Maybe I will. I don't know. Maybe. But this is Hombre, starring Paul Newman. That's right. And it also has Richard Boone in here, who pretty much steals the show. I think Richard Boone is fantastic in this movie. I mostly remember him from The Shootist. He's in a slow movies. He's this mean, kind of groggly guy, kind of in the vein of a Neville Brand or something like that. You need somebody who's meaner than shit. You get Richard Boone. You get Neville Brand. You get somebody like this, right? So what happens is, we have Paul Newman, who is grown up. He's been raised by Native Americans, so he has obvious sympathy towards them. In the very beginning, he has long hair. Martin Balsam comes in, and he's playing a Mexican character, and he tells him, oh yeah, I can't forget Cam Mitchell's in here. My boy Cameron Mitchell, he plays the sheriff of a small town who's just tired of it all and wants to escape, but he needs some money. So you know where this is going. So Martin Balsam tells him, hey, your guy who raised you, the kind of guy who took you in after the Native American stuff, or maybe he's like, he died and he left you this kind of, basically, I don't want to say a flop house, but a kind of a hotel kind of deal, and he left you some other things, and he's going to come in town. He's like, you should shave up your hair, cut your hair, come in, and everything like that. He has a run-in with a couple assholes before that, racist guys who hate Native Americans, and he teaches them a lesson. He goes there, shaves his head and everything like that, and he has to basically travel to this place after he checked out the kind of house and all this kind of stuff. He meets the lady who's running it. He decides to sell. There's also a handful of other characters here, a young guy who lives there and his new wife, who are not getting along, and the lady who runs the house is going, and he's going, and we have Richard Boone walk in, and he says, I'm going on this wagon for this trip, and they're like, he basically bullies his way in there, and he's going to. Martin Balsam is going to drive this wagon, and they're pushing hard. We have a couple rich guys, a rich kind of government official that deals with Native Americans, and his very high class wife, and they're on there as well. And what happens is, of course, a group of thugs, including Cam Mitchell, decide to hold this stagecoach up because, the government official, he's doing bad things. Who would ever think that a government official back in this day and age, back then, would do something wrong? They're so trustworthy all the time, no matter who they are. So what happens is, of course, this creates a thing where, everybody's going to look towards Paul Newman, right? Because he's the only one. He doesn't like these people. He's been alienated against the entire fucking movie, right? But he doesn't like these people, but they're going to look to him as the unlikely hero, the kind of hero who doesn't want to do it. He's going to have to risk his life and whatnot. So he reluctantly helps them and whatnot, and he obviously doesn't like the government guy. But what happens is there's a big standoff where they're all kind of trapped and laid down to rest and everything like that. And it basically says a lot of things about how there's a really kind of awesome part in here where he says, give me the knife. He's like, that's not all you want from me. And you're just like, that's right. And a character knows exactly what's going to happen to them, and they do it anyways because maybe it's not even the right thing to do. It's the heroic thing to do. But if there was any fairness, this wouldn't have happened to him. This is a good film. I like Paul Newman. Always like Paul Newman, from Cool Hand Luke to Road to Perdition to almost anything I've seen him pop up, and he's good. Martin Bolzum is a great character actor, from Psycho all the way to Death Wish 3. Love my Martin Bolzum. 12 Angry Men. Richard Boone, love him in this. He's just an asshole. He's great too. Cameron Mitchell, solid. A little bit smaller role than I would have liked. All the other supporting cast is good too. Overall, this is a solid film. I like this film. There's a couple moments in here that go against the grain, I would say. The ending, definitely. Downbeat kind of ending here. Maybe a little ahead of its time, I would say. Right on that cusp of stuff like The Wild Bunch what's the one? Josie Wales, Sundance Kid, Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid, So it's like getting up to this moment, Bonnie and Clyde, same year, 67. So we're kind of see some dark endings, some stuff like that. Although it is held in a kind of a heroic type of ending. But there's also a moment where a character is kind of walking the line, flirting with this kind of villain. And the guy gets really nasty with her. And the other lady says, well, you were doing it. Don't say nothing to your husband because you'll just get him killed. And you're like, oh shit, that's so fucked up and demented. But at the same time, is it worth mentioning? Because he definitely would kill your husband. And as everybody just looks to Paul Newman. They hate Paul Newman because he has this relationship with the Native Americans, but at the same time, he's the only one that can help them. Balsam's got some good moments too. Overall, Hombre is a good film. I like this one. I had never seen it. The cover is very funny. It's like, Paul Newman is Hombre. I bet the poster is Hombre. But good film nonetheless. Enjoyed it. Classic westerns, especially American westerns from the 60s. I always pretty much dig, and I always dig the spaghetti westerns from the 60s as well. I think westerns from the 60s are really strong in general, no matter where they're from. But Hombre, good stuff. Let's get into these questions, comments, and concerns. So first up, Ken Coakley. The Creature with the Blue Hand is one of my favorite Klaus Kinski films, along with Nosferatu the Vampire and A Bullet for the General, even though he only had a supporting role. I love color films from the 60s, and this was no exception. Even though the film was German, it had some British sensibility to it, as well as the look of a giallo, especially with the killer's costume. It looked like the killer's costume from Del Tenney's Curse of the Living Corpse, as well as the killer's costume in Blood and Black Lace, for sure. The blue gauntlet seemed like a prototype for Freddy Krueger's glove. Actually, it looked like Wolverine's claw. Aside from the wigging out in courtroom, Kinski was unusually normal. But the dual role kind of added a weird element too. My only problem was with the dog dying early on. Even after that, I will have to catch up on Edgar Wallace films. I watched Buddies on the Criterion Channel for the first time. I liked the minimal sets and only seeing the two main actors throughout the whole film. It seemed to run like a play. I liked the portrayal of the David character, but not so much the Robert character. But the makeup job was really good. The film also brought back memories of when AIDS was starting to come to the forefront. It certainly affected my family. Even though my brother is straight, he had gay friends, including his best friend's brother. My brother believed that whatever happened to his best friend happened to him. So when the best friend's brother died, my brother was devastated with him. In those days, people had very little education when it came to AIDS. It was thought that only the gays and Haitians got the virus, so they looked at it like, it's not my bummer. Whereas everyone caught COVID, so they started caring. Early on in the AIDS epidemic, my brother worked at a comedy club. He had a coworker who was also a comedian who was gay and flamboyant. He said to me that the only thing that worried him about AIDS was the thought of telling his parents that he's Haitian. I thought that even though I'm straight, I could get it. How could I tell my mother that I'm a vampire? I told him that even though I'm straight, how could I tell my mother I'm a vampire? The comedian fell over. Anyway, the movie was thought-provoking. Yeah, it's a good film. It's a good story, too. Because first sight, getting first-hand insight on it is better than somebody just reading something, right? Abba96, congrats. I assume he's doing because of my 10,000 subs, which I hit 10,000 subscribers finally. I appreciate it. Thank you. Eddie Daniels, congrats on hitting 10K. I've been watching your channel for years, and I look forward to your updates. I hope you're doing well. You look terrific. Thank you. I am doing well. And I've decided in my life, I'm 38 years old now. I'm getting older. I'd rather feel better than look better. For years, I would starve myself and worry about, I'm just not doing it anymore. If I get a little chubby, I get a little chubby. I don't care anymore. I run, I exercise. Life is too short to worry about how other people perceive how you look. I take care of myself. I do my best, but hey, just eat the hamburger or something, or eat the cookie or donut. You'll be all right. What the flick? I'm going to see The Substance this week, and I'm pretty excited. I like the director's first film, Revenge. It had a few really stupid scenes, but overall it's pretty awesome and entertaining. I agree. I think the movie has a weird, over-the-top element that works for that movie, but I don't think it's grounded in reality. Nor do I think The Substance is, but they're both great. Substance, I like a lot more. More my thing. Nick Moore from Belgium, you're having me salivating over The Substance. I'll just have to go and see it now. Seriously, though, I expected nothing less from the director of 2017's Revenge. Easily one of the best rape revenge movies of the 21st century. Also, it stars a very fine Belgian actor, Kevin Janssens, who equally great in 2019's The Room. Luckily, not the remake of Tommy Wiseau classic. If you're interested in how that Rob Zombie's Halloween kid's name is pronounced, it is Dag Furk. It's Swedish, apparently. Thank you. Questions. Just regarding The Room, what's another so bad good flick from the early 2000s or later? Man, I don't know. It's not really my forte. I don't like laughing at movies. I'm sure there's a couple in there that I just laugh hysterically. And also, it's probably an independent movie. I don't want to dog on somebody, man. So I ain't gonna do it. Do you feel that natural disaster or pollution leads to horrible mutation movies are more relevant now than they were? What? That doesn't make sense. Do you feel that natural disaster or pollution leads to horrible mutation movies are more relevant now than they were when they were made? No, I mean, it is what it is, right? I mean, there's movies in the 60s, 70s warning about the same shit in all movies, and it's still prevalent, A lot of people say it's prevalent today, or it's just as impactful, or something that's like that, or it's even more impactful now, and it's like it's even resonates even more now. It's like it's just never went away, I guess, is really. So, like Peter Sasdy's Doomwatch, Humanoids from the Deeper, Roland Emmerich's The Day After Tomorrow, for example. I think maybe post-apocalyptic movies or something like that aspect possibly is a little bit more because people are saying the storms are getting harder, whatever, you know what I mean. It's finally loving the black tank top. Is this the evil tank top? No. Edward Dong, I have a new found respect for Debbie Moore after seeing The Substance. What a risky move on her part, and totally paid off. A Cronenbergian movie that outdoes Cronenberg. That's not something you'd expect to see in today's cinema. No. Debbie Moore earned some respect for me too. Not that I disliked her. It's just like, holy shit. Last time I seen her in something horror was like the Tales from the Crypt episode, which is a good one. Indie Phantoms of Cinema. Love hurts in cinema. Want to watch those cuts in Zombies, Halloween, and Dazed and Confused too. Yeah, I love that song and used in movies. We're referring to Strange Darlings. Zammy Adams, I didn't enjoy The Substance at all. I did love Strange Darling though. Hobgoblins is hilarious. Great episode, man. Thank you. David Leather, great show as always. And, he's also telling me how to say Anthony Franciosa. His name. There we go. Franciosa. Thank you. Angela150, thank you for another great review, James. No problem. Way up, dude. And he gives me a bunch of little smiley faces and stuff. I appreciate it. So we're going to get in the update, but there's a couple things I'm going to show that I can't really get in the thing. That I bought some stuff at the Severn table, and they threw a bunch of swag in here. These kind of weird cover arts, a bunch of them and everything like that. Just tons and tons of them. I don't want to open them all up, but there's a lot of weird shit going on here. I don't know if these are just printed off VHS covers or whatnot, but it's a bunch of them like Terror in the Opera. There's a lot of them. I'm not going to open them all up, but they just threw them in there. It's probably sitting around the office. I'm like, we'll give these away. Give these all to these people and everything like that. They also threw in a poster, which I doubt it's clearly not like an original or anything like that, but I picked Beyond the Darkness, Blue Omega. They also had a really cool Don't Answer the Don't Go in the House poster, and I like the poster a lot, but it's such a misleading poster, and I was like, I do like Beyond the Darkness better. I think it's a better film, so they're close though. I actually both those films are really good. I think they're both 79 if I'm not mistaken. And then they had these buy random shirts for $10 at Paul Bear Press, and it was like in a little grab bag, so I got a Demons. You didn't even know what you're getting, and I was like, I'll take the chance if I already have them. They're work shirts for $10. Can't go wrong. And I got Zombie, Splinter in the Eye, so that was cool to grab those. And I'm missing one more thing, and I don't know if I can even show it, so I'm going to try to block it out. I'm not going to show you all three. These are these giant Italian kind of lobby cards. So here we go. These are fucking awesome. These are $10 a piece. We have Demons here, which I love, if I could show that. And man, I'm going to have to block out the center of this, but this is Murder Obsession, which is an okay movie by Ricardo Freda, but this is one of the coolest ones, and it has Laura Gemser in the middle with the blade in there. I also got a church in the middle, which is cool. It has like the body, like orgy pit, so that's really cool. But I got a bunch of stuff that's not from Wasteland here as well that I got, like 2 or 3 titles that I'll show first, and then we'll jump right into the Wasteland haul. It's a decent amount, but yeah, let's get into that. Okay, let's start this up. A couple movies that came when I this week, besides Wasteland Halls, were finally the Houses of Doom TV movies by Umberto Lenzi and Lucio Fulci from Cauldron Films. You got House of Clocks, Sweet House of Horrors, Fulci movies, House of Witchcraft, The House of Lost Souls. So fucking cool on Blu-ray. Yeah, these never been on Blu-ray in the States. I don't even know if all these really didn't even have DVDs in the States. Witchcraft and Lost Souls didn't. I know that these two were media blasters from the Fulci movies. So very cool. Awesome set. Love this. Can't wait to check those out. I'm a big Fulci fan. I like Lenzi too. So then we also have from TerrorVision, this came my 4K of Gun Massacre 1985. This movie is bonkers and ridiculous, but it's a lot of fun. It's just complete bullshit. I love it. What else do we got here? I'm trying to find a place to set these that's a little bit safer. Ugh. I got all this crap down here, so sorry for the delay. Then we have Satanik, which is another TerrorVision release here, Italian film. This sounded awesome, and I had never heard of this film. They put this out, and I was like, I usually hear a lot. This is of these movies from Italy, and this is 60s one. So I must have missed this one. I'm not too familiar with it, but it sounded cool. Kind of a contamination movie, a plague kind of thing. Then we have Psychosis, which is the bigger budget remake of the Wave film. And I grabbed this. This also has the original on it. Insanity is a Diagnosis, Revenge is a Cure. This is shot on film. I never saw this movie, and I was like, shit, man, I'm definitely going to grab this. Look at all the special features on here. Demo, the SOV feature, tons of shit. This is perfect. I'm definitely going to check this out. Because I remember liking Psycho Sisters for a low-budget thing, but that was the first Wasteland picture, by the way. I picked up Psycho Sisters at Wasteland. So now we're in the Wasteland Hall. Then I also grabbed Linnea Quigley's Horror Workout. This movie I've seen years ago. It's nonsense. It's just Linnea Quigley having fun with a bunch of zombies in the background. It's been years. That's right. I'm watching it again. Now I have the Blu-ray of it. Gotta love my zombies. Love my Linnea Quigley. And then we have another TerrorVision. The first time they were there, I was very excited to see them. Attack of the Killer Refrigerator. Oh no, I just hate cold cuts. That's genius, right? And it also has the Hook Woodland Heights. These are both two shorts. I think they're on film, though, so both shorts by the same group of filmmakers. Maybe they're not. They look SOV for sure, or at least tape masters. But yeah, cool stuff. Then we have some Severance stuff here. First up is The Creature, Eloy de la Iglesia. Not to be confused with the other director with the same last name who does Alex de la Iglesia. This is the director who did stuff like Cannibal Man, which is a great film. And this one, it sounds really fucking crazy, but great director, so I'm definitely willing to check it out. Then we have A Dog Called Vengeance. This looked really cool. Not heard much about it except from the podcast. This is the one I think where the dog is like chasing him cross country when he escapes. Dog has a vendetta. Sounds really cool. Then we have The Mad Bomber with Chuck Connors in there, Neville Brand, Vince Edwards, and I think this was AKA Police Connection. I think Code Red might have put this one out. Burt I. Gordon, which is crazy because he's so used to doing like the giant, Food of the Gods and stuff like that. But this one is definitely different. Looks pretty cool. Pretty demented, actually. Then we have Red Light Bandit. This is by one of the guys who kind of was a contemporary of Coffin Joe from Brazil. So this looks interesting as well. I think it's based on a true story if I'm not wrong, but this sounded really cool. I love these kind of international wild cinema movies that I don't know much about. And then last from Severin, we had to grab this, finally, the Game of Clones Bruceploitation Collection, Volume 1, and possibly limited bonus disc in here. Yeah, the Big Boss Part 2, and the Black Dragon vs. the Yellow Tiger. So I had to get this, a bunch of fucking movies on here, 7 disc, 12 restored Bruceploitation films, and Enter the Clones of Bruce Doc. Super happy to have that. Very cool. Severin cleaned up, man. They had so much stuff on their table, and then by the end of the thing, it was pretty much gone. This is another thing that Severin threw in. This is kind of swag stuff that they give you when they have a bunch of stuff sitting around. He's trying to get it away, so that's very cool. They gave me a lot of extra bonus stuff. So then we're going to hop into some more stuff. I think this came with TerrorVision or House. Yeah. And then we have some independent movies, Flesh Games. I think this is David Dawson. I know the Sick on Cinema boys were talking about his film, so I was like, I'm gonna check this out. They seem to like his movies. I'm going to give this one a shot. Got to support indie cinema when you think it's going to be good. I've watched so many independent movies back in my day, and there's a lot of them that I didn't like, but I'm going to start trying to give some choice, some more pick up some more and give them a fair shake because I've neglected them, I'm going to be honest. But The Coven of the Black Cube, this is by Bruce Longo. I have his other film, one of them, A Corpse for Christmas. This one sounded interesting, heard about it on a podcast. So yeah, I ended up grabbing it. Has a nice little cast in there. Did I see Tina Krause? That's very cool. Yeah, Joan Swanberg. Yeah, it's got a bunch of people in there. Chris Seaver and David the Rock Nelson. So yeah, I'm going to check that out as well. I think his movies are SOB style. And then we have Bloodsick Psychosis. Another one by Bruce Longo. This, I guess, is supposedly loosely based on Richard Chase. And then we have Blood, Guts, and Sunshine 2, the history of horror movies made in Florida. And I had a little role in this, being interviewed about Day of the Dead and stuff like that, just give my take on it. But there's a bunch of other people in here. You got like important people like Fred Owen Ray, J.R. Bookwalter, Robert J. Emery, and Donald Farmer. So yeah, cool stuff here. They talk about a lot of stuff. I have not had a lot of movies that were filmed in Florida. I've not had a chance to watch this one yet, but Sean Donahue, cool guy, directed it. Then we have Kill Her Goats. This is a $10 widescreen collector's edition. I heard weird things about it. Somebody said it's so bad it's good. So I was like, for $10 I'll give it a spin. Then we have Force to Fear, which Moods said it was really cool. He really liked this one, so I ended up picking it up. So why not? Yeah. This is from Scream Team Releasing. So there we go. Probably made a bunch of noise right there when I closed that. Sorry. And then next up we have Fatal Termination, which I hear is great. This is from Air 4444. This is one that I missed out on the deluxe edition. Super happy to get the regular edition. Love what this company's doing. Then we have a couple DVDs from James Bell. Gorography, which looks weird and crazy. All his movies are pretty insane. James Bell is a very unique director. His movies are not for everybody, but if you dig his SOV crazy, weird, absurdity, surreal shit, then check it out. This one's called Around Midnight. I actually enjoy his films. I actually was in one of his movies, and I just like what he does. His special effects are gnarly, especially when they're on VHS. They look really cool. But yeah, that is the update. Let's get out of here. All right, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, have a good one.